Welcome to a very special edition of the Pewtercast. My name is Brent Allen, joined as always by my good friend Ren Daxt. Ren, we are talking to each other a lot sooner than I thought we would be this week, my friend. I thought once we got through the draft, we'd kind of dip back into that like once every 2 week kind of mode for a while. But here we are about 4 days later, not even 4 days, maybe 3 days later, getting on the mic again. Because we got some stuff to talk about. We got some fun news that I'm not hearing much else out there at all.
I am Jack's bubbling excitement.
So it's interesting. I think you're a little bit like my wife, I think in this way. And that like my wife,
Beautiful, caring,
all
smart,
of those things.
Smart.
Shine on your head. No, don't tell her I said that. Anyway,
doctor.
But like she's a very muted person. Like you guys know me. Like I'm a fairly animated guy. She is not. Like we talk about her excitometer like goes up to like 4, and like that's peaking for her. Like sometimes you're like that. You're like I'm really excited, but like the average person just wouldn't know.
Oh, sometimes I am like that, but I had to keep it in the tone and the reference of the original material there. That's a reference to a movie, which I did.
Oh, it is?
Last pod.
Wow. Well, I did
last pod.
Oh, you did? Wait. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm completely screwing this one. What are you talking about? I don't know.
Fight Club.
Oh, okay.
I'm Jack's deep sense of betrayal. Did that last pod.
Yep. I got it now.
All right.
Wow. Whammy. Hey, listen, Ren, before we get into all that, just a quick shout out. We're doing something new tonight.
Oh, we are?
The Pewtercast is evolving. The Pewtercast is growing. We're going to every off season kind of going, okay, what's the right next step for us as a show? Where do we go from here? And one of the things that we've kind of looked at over there for a couple of years, we've had our YouTube channel where we go live, and then our regular podcast, the audio feed, usually posts directly over there. But it's actually stopped since we made the switch. People remember back in February, we switched to a thing called Overtime Media, and the automatic posting had stopped over there. But we were kind of looking at it. And so one of the things that you guys are going to get to do, especially if you are a YouTube listener here of the Pewtercast, is we are now going to be posting the video recordings of our podcast. Like when we sit down to record a podcast, as we are now, if you want to watch the video of that, you can actually go see that at YouTube, and they'll be posted up over there. In theory, all the time. We're going to test it out for a while and see how it goes. I'm not going to commit to this is the new way of life forever, but we'll test it out for a while and see how it goes.
Probably some behind the curtain moments too.
Sure.
You know, that we don't have recorded or don't make the pod.
Oh yeah.
We'll probably make the video cast over at YouTube.
Sure. Because it's a lot easier to edit the audio than it is all the video stuff and put those pieces together. So absolutely right. So you guys, just letting you know, you guys can go check that out over at youtube.com/thepewtercast. You can subscribe. That'll let you know when those notifications go up. Obviously, these are not call-in shows. We are recording live without letting anybody know that we're doing this. So the podcast will drop. But if you guys want to go watch the video, you're certainly welcome to over there at YouTube. All right, Ren. Yes. Normally we would go into like, introductions. We have some kind of special guest, and we have like a musical break, an interlude, and different things. But that's not what we're doing here today.
We're not?
No.
Oh.
No.
We're not going to do a break?
We're not. Well, yeah, eventually maybe. But we'll have to have a pause. But the big reason we're here today is because earlier today,
you had a one-on-one interview.
I had, as far as I know, it could have been a one-on-one interview. And with a very special person. If you guys have read the title of the podcast already, Jason Licht. We got to have a phone call with Jason Licht earlier today that was meant for crew members, season ticket holders. And I don't know, Ren, what the extent of that was. I don't know if it was all season ticket holders. I don't know if it was just a random select group. I don't know if they're doing various ones of these. I don't know. All I know is that I got an invite to it as a season ticket holder. And they asked me also as a quote unquote member of the media to not record it and put it out there, but we're certainly welcome to talk about it and talk about everything that we heard. So tonight we are going to be going through. Ren and I have both we both got to listen to this and
without recording it.
Do what?
Without recording it.
Without recording it. We both got to listen to it on my season ticket pass, account. And basically it was just a Q&A with Jason Licht.
Yes.
And it was questions that were submitted from season ticket holders. And he did 24 of them was the count that I had.
Yes, which is about 18 more than he normally does.
Right.
Because we've been to sort of these things before, during the training camp season, Women of Red, crew member stuff, and they'll have the panel of the coaches, and they're like, "Here, fill out this form," and you ask coach a question, and they ask like 6 questions,
right?
And they're like, "Thanks, everybody, good night." But this was like a solid half hour of Jason Licht just answering questions. Right. And there's a lot of good nuggets in there, because also, Jason Licht speaks like 4 times a year.
It seems total. Like it, yeah.
So anytime we get to hear him talk, and not only hear him talk, but get to ask him questions. I know he does like a radio hit before every game, but those are all softball questions.
Right.
These aren't from the fans and from the media members, so this is it's rare air. So, with you saying it was only crew members, season ticket holders, club seat holders, whatever it was,
right.
Credentialed media members weren't there.
Right.
The beat reporters, the boots on the ground.
And I asked a few of them, I was like, "Hey, were you in on this call? Did you know about this call?" And 201, all the ones that I asked, I just texted them and they're like, "No, didn't even know it was happening." So, all right.
Good.
So good. So there's going to be some stuff. And a lot of the questions were kind of fluff. We may skip through some of those, but there were ones that as Ren said, there's lots of great little nuggets that came out. So Ren, you've got a list of questions that you wanted to hit. I've got a list of questions that I wanted to hit. And I think we'll just kind of go back and forth. And, if we have any crossover, we'll just cross them off until we get through. So with that, Ren, why don't we this will be a great place to take a small break. And on the backside of that break, we will come back and do this interview because that's a great point. We need to put that in there. So coming up on today's episode of the Pewtercast, Jason Licht exclusive phone call, lots of nuggets that you guys as fans and us as fans really want to know about. Stay with us. We'll be right back. And for those of you watching the YouTube video, this is where I'm going to edit in the advertisements that you guys are hearing now. Or at least I'll put the markers in and we'll cut that in. So, but actually behind the scenes curtains, for those of you guys watching this video, a lot of times, this show is not recorded in order and we'll take a break, actually right here and get up and go. So I'm not sure how this will work on the video, but just pulling back the curtain for you guys who are watching with us. But, with that, Ren, before we go on, do you want to just go and jump in or do you need to go do anything?
I'm good.
Okay, cool. So we'll come back and pick this up and we'll do that. 3, 2, and we're back. Ren, buddy, Jason Licht, we got to talk to him. I'll toss it over to you first, man. I'll just give you the first call. What is something you heard from Jason Licht in his interview today that really stood out to you that you want to discuss?
Yeah, like you said, there's 24 questions. There's only about 10 that I cared about. A lot of them were very similar. Some of them were straight up repetitive. Some of them were things, well, that's kind of a dumb question.
Right.
And
was one of them the very last question asked?
I was going to get there. Yeah, because you got a question in there, Brett.
I did. And the last one.
Yeah, and it wasn't about leadership. So
was not. Although there was a leadership question in there.
Yes, which I have not written down. Did you have you written the leadership question?
I have it in my larger notes, but it's not a part of this conversation.
Sidestep the landmine. So I got about 10 things, and then there were some questions. Like I was going to say, like a lot of them were like, "How'd you feel about getting Tom Brady? When did you think about getting Tom Brady? How was it? How great do you feel getting Brady and Gronk? When did you first decide to get Gronk?" So those are the ones that that we're leaving out. Trust me, there's no like information that you would really want to know with the Buccaneers moving forward that he said that you haven't already heard before? So I got 10 questions.
I'm sorry, just while you're on that,
Yeah.
if I can recap all 10 of those questions in one real statement, it's what they've been saying the entire time of what happened. They didn't talk to him until the dinner bell rang. They kept their options open, and once they talked to him, everybody was like already in agreement, and so there it goes. Like,
Yeah.
that's the story of Brady coming to Tampa. So
Yeah.
believe it or not, that's the story they've always said, and Light was very much on point with that same message tonight. And I have no reason to not believe that's true. So
And really don't care at this point.
there you go.
Yeah.
Brady's here.
Yeah. And, and the other one with Gronk, how do you feel about Gronk being here? Well, I'm happy. Okay. Thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Like what?
Uh-huh.
And then I said there's some bullet points in there too. So the first question that caught my eye, I think, will be one that a lot of Buck fans are wondering about, especially the way the salary cap is Chris Godwin's extension.
Yes. Yes. He was asked specifically, any news on an extension for Chris Godwin? Will that happen this year?
And he says, and this is all paraphrasing, of course, loves Chris. Chris is a huge piece here. He wants to sign him to a long-term deal, and he wants to for him to be a Buccaneer for life.
Yes.
But he was very uncommittal about when it would start, which he also made it very clear that the negotiations have not begun.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. In fact, he said he personally told Chris he wants him to be a Buccaneer for life.
Right.
But you're right. Those negotiations have not begun. So anybody out there wondering about what's going on with the Chris Godwin thing, they haven't even talked about it yet.
So, haven't even talked about it yet.
Yeah.
So it's your turn. It's where we get the leadership question right off the bat.
Would you like me to go to it? Because I will.
No, I would not.
I would like to go first to, it's actually the second question that they asked. And I'll probably, I don't have a hierarchy of these, so I'll just go through the.
Yeah, mine aren't ranked. Mine are just in the order they were asked and the ones that I liked.
He was asked, what are you doing to shore up the running back position? Right. Which now bear in mind, this is after we just drafted 2 guys in the draft. And
to be fair, these questions were asked to be sent in before the draft.
That is fair. That is true. That is absolutely true. But he says, I didn't actually think about that because I was like, why are you asking that question? We just
right, exactly.
And his response was, Rojo took a big step last year. We expected him to take a new big step this year. We still believe him in his upside. He quickly talked about Vaughn. He just said, we all really liked him. And then he spent a few minutes talking about Raymond Calais, apparently is how his name is pronounced.
Right.
Talking about he's a speed guy. He's a speed guy. He's a speed guy. But what really stood out to me in this answer was he just sort of threw away at the end. He's like, and we're always still looking for upgrades.
Yeah.
Which tells me like they're excited with what they've got. They are okay, I guess, with kind of where they are, but they could still recognize using some upgrades along the running back position room, I guess.
And I took a couple of bullet points from that question where he talked a lot about Rojo again.
Right.
Very big on Rojo, very high on Rojo. Expect him to make another huge leap like he did from year 1 to year 2 to year 2 to 3. And he compared Calais to Matt Breida, who fans will know was with the 49ers and now I don't know who he got traded, but he got traded draft day, sometime during the draft to somebody. So if you're looking for a comp, that's who at least Jason Licht and the organization comp Calais to like. I'm going to start from the back. So,
okay.
So, because yours is just in chronological order too, right?
It's just how it's written on my notes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to start from the back. So
okay.
I don't sort of like take all your questions. We'll meet in the middle somewhere.
Sure.
All right. So we go to your question.
Uh-huh.
This question is sent in by Brent Mulberry.
Oh, you are going to my question. All right. Fantastic.
Yeah. It says, forgive me. I don't know a lot about football. I'm not a very good fan. I love the Saints because Jameis is there. But since I have to ask this question, what's your favorite draft trade?
You know what I love about that is you wrote that down verbatim.
My shorthand is no joke.
All of that was false except for the actual question. There was,
yes.
What was your favorite draft trade?
What was your favorite draft trade? And he talked about The Vita trade, which
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was one that he liked. That I'm glad he brought up
Mm-hmm.
because they had targeted. He said they had targeted Vita Vea,
Mm-hmm.
but trading down and still getting him able them to draft Carlton Davis, and then later using the other piece of that trade
Mm-hmm.
to bundle with another piece he already had to go up and get Kappa
Right.
in the third. So he said he liked that one, but his favorite one, since it's your question, Brent,
Mm-hmm.
you go ahead and I'll let you finish this one off.
For the record, I thought actually that was the one that I was kind of fishing for, was that one, because I wanted to hear him talk about that particular trade, because I just remember being so impressed how he took one trade, traded down a handful of spots. It wasn't much. And he turned it into like three or four
Yeah,
different draft picks. Like
yeah.
it was an amazing draft to watch him
It's
work
weird
on.
how he left MJ Stewart out of that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Who
exactly.
I'm not exactly 100% sure, but I believe that was the other pick that got out of that trade.
Right. Yeah.
But anyway,
Actually, that's an interesting point to note, just a subtext, because sometimes you got to read between the lines here. But he said that it was actually slightly moving up into the third round, or from the third into the second round a couple years before, to get Ali Marpet.
yeah,
That
yeah,
was his favorite one, and I think it's because Ali has been such an impactful player for the Bucs. They've already signed him to a second contract. He's the first D3 guy taken in the draft, or at least taken in the second round, taken that high.
yeah,
And
yeah.
he's just super tickled with how that particular pick worked out. So
Yeah, Allie's making him look smart. It's like he
yeah.
bet on Allie and Allie came through for him.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not so much of what he got back,
Mm-hmm.
or, oh, I really pulled the fleece over their eyes on this one. It
Uh-huh.
was more of, hey, I believed what I believed. I believed in the tape and I believed in the person. And I
Mm-hmm.
went up and got the guy I wanted, and he didn't burn me, so to
Right.
speak. So that was your question.
It was. I'm surprised you picked that one. That's cool. I like that. And it so happens for me personally, if I had to pick a favorite player on the Buccaneers, Ali Marpet. Ali Marpet certainly fits that bill. So yeah, good pick. Good pick. If I do say so myself.
Twice.
He was asked, let's see here. Yeah, this one. My turn, I guess, Ren.
Yes.
Okay. He was asked how he felt about this year's draft,
Uh-huh.
right? Which I thought was kind of okay, whatever. And he said basically this draft stacked up really well with the needs of the team. In fact, I believe he said they don't always do that, but this one really stacked up with the needs of the team. And he addressed the needs. He's like, we were able to address our needs: tackle, running back, safety, tackle, running back, safety. And I was thinking when he said that, I'm pretty sure every time I've heard Jason talk about the needs of the team, that it's been in that specific order: tackle, running back, safety, tackle, running back, safety. What stands out to me from that, though, is the order that we drafted people in was running back, safety, or I'm sorry, tackle, running back, safety. No, flip those around. How do I, what is it? What am I trying to
Tackle,
say?
safety, running back.
That's the one right there.
Yes,
That's the
that's the
one.
one.
And I know we had a lot of talk on our last episode, Ren, about the need
Safety
for a
position?
safety in the safety position, right?
Yes.
And you had said, and I thought this was a really astute observation of, if you were going to take a safety in the second,
Or if you're gonna take a safety at all.
right? Okay,
Well, if you're gonna take a
I'll
safety
let
at
you
all,
say it. Go ahead. Short
yeah, if
words.
you're gonna take a safety at all, it needed to be in the second round.
Uh-huh.
Because I didn't think anybody that, quote unquote, was supposed to be there
Mm-hmm.
in the third that was really going to be any better than Edwards or Whitehead
Mm-hmm.
or if Justin Evans comes back, or Dixon, or the second president of the United States, Andrew Adams.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then if you waited till day 3, of course, that just kind of holds through. And it needed to be the right safety, which was a guy that can play. They keep talking about Todd Bowles' defense. You got to be able to play both spots, which means you got to play center field, sideline to sideline. And you
Mm-hmm.
also got to go down to the box and sort of play the slot or a joker linebacker position. Basically, you got to be able to cover the slot guy and set the very outside edge in the run game. Come up and
Mm-hmm.
make that tackle. And they want both safeties to be able to do both really well.
Yeah. So he did that. So I just, like I said, I found it very interesting, the order he said that, considering the order that they actually took them in. Again, I might be reading way too much into that, but what it tells me, though, or what I'm thinking is they think the same thing that I think most of us in fandom thought was the hierarchy of need, at least going in, was tackle, running back. A lot of people would say safety. You didn't though, but still.
No.
But running back was actually higher in the hierarchy. And the idea, the thought to me that it ran off his tongue like that, if he said that trio so many times, but they still wound up taking that safety before they took their running back.
Right.
And it makes me want, like he said earlier in a conversation we had of how excited they were about Keyshawn Vaughn, and then they just sort of went on. He never really elaborated or gushed over Keyshawn Vaughn. Like he did a little bit over Raymond Calais, but not so much. He was just like, yeah, we were all really excited for Raymond or for Keyshawn, and then he just moved on. So
Right.
I wonder how excited they really are.
Well, here's the one thing I took out. It was obviously from another question, but we're not going to get to it. But here, he did say that, yes, we all like Vaughn. We all think he can be a 3-down back.
Right.
And with that means he can catch and he can block is basically what he's saying.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how much more of a I'm not going to read into it that he, said a few more words about Calais than he did Vaughn and say, oh, well, he didn't. Did Dirk Cutter just hire his replacement?
Oh, shut up.
We should talk about that more.
So I don't talk to people not on the team anymore.
Was never on the team. What number was Prince Buckner? So is that it for the draft process question?
Yes.
Okay.
You see what I go through, people. You see what I go through here.
Never make a mistake in front of me. Never trust a Vulcan. No,
absolutely not.
All right. Well, somebody, thank God, asked about Justin Evans.
Yeah, there you go.
And where he was in his recovery process.
Mm-hmm.
And Jason Licht says it was a very short answer, but it was all good. It was like reports are positive. Basically he said he's getting better every day. We hope to have him back by the start of training camp.
Right.
The end. But
it wasn't the end.
It was the end.
Go ahead. All right.
What do you got?
What?
That's what I heard. It was a very short answer.
Yes, it was the answer he gave with Justin Evans. It was the boxed canned answer that these guys give when they talk to the media, right? Like, or when they talk in public. Mm-hmm. He's good. He's fine. We hope to have him back by training camp. Doesn't comment on it much more than that. But what he did go on to say was, he said, if Justin Evans comes back, there will be a healthy competition at the safety position, and that he felt that the safety group, which was once considered a weakness on the team, could actually turn out to be the strength of the defense.
Yeah, so he probably didn't need to draft a guy then.
Right. Which I marked that, honestly, Ren, because of the conversation that the point and everything you were making before the draft of why you should not draft a safety.
Right. Yeah. Right? We have no tier 1 safeties, but we got 5 tier 2s. Mm-hmm. Like you can wait on it, but they didn't want to. And also Jason said during here, like you said, like he since the draft, I've heard him say more than once that safety was a need. Safety was something he wanted to go after in the draft. Mm-hmm. So obviously I was wrong.
Right.
Or
I'm going to mark where you just said that so I can pull that clip.
Put that at the beginning of the end of every pod. Obviously,
touchdown Tampa Bay. You're listening to the Pewtercast. Obviously,
I was wrong. So I'm going to change it to obviously Jason Licht and I didn't agree. But I'm not sure if he said it here, but this is a bullet point that I wrote down about the safeties was it's like we got Winfield to go along with Edwards, which is a little which is a little surprising because everyone is sort of throwing dirt on. I shouldn't say everyone, but a lot of people are the reason they wanted another safety was because of Edwards. Edwards didn't make the big of a leap near the end of the year that Dean and SMB made. So he was putting him up next to those two guys and proves it made him look like a bust. Mm-hmm. And then he mentioned Evans, and then he mentioned Whitehead, and said no word about Dixon, and said no word about Andrews. So in the spirit of reading into too much from what he said, was that, I would not be surprised if day one training camp, first team defense, it's Winfield and Edwards out there with Evans and Whitehead, and poor Dixon and president number 2 are looking for jobs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but I don't want to say that's the way you want the best people on the field.
Right.
And you hope that those best people are the draft picks and not necessarily the undrafted free agents. Although you'll take it the other way if that's the way it happens. But
the big nugget was there. He said we got Winfield to go along with Edwards.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, really? Okay.
Right.
All right. Because that was all the stuff we heard about Edwards. But the leadership, can play in the box, can play anywhere, team player, intangibles, all that stuff. All the stuff we're hearing about Winfield. So
there you go. All right. I've got one. And Ren, you just skipped over one that is like kind of a bullet point that attaches onto this one from a different question. So I'm going to kind of pull like a two. It's not a twofer, it's a 1.5-er.
Sure.
But I want to put two things together, and it's stuff that we've actually discussed here on the Pewtercast before. That again, it just sort of, I think, validates a lot of what we've been saying here. But he was asked this question about what was one of his favorite interactions with a player.
Right.
And he kind of went through a bunch, and he's like, actually, his favorite moment was when he talked to Tom Brady, because Tom Brady wanted to come here.
Right.
And that he felt that was a reflection of how they've built this team and effectively how it validated what they've been doing over the last bunch of years here with the Tampa Bay Bucs.
Right. Because it hasn't been validated through wins.
No, it has not. Or through respect in the league or media coverage or national media coverage, I should say, or anything like that. Because the wins have not been there. But he said that, and we have spent a lot of time talking about how much credit do these guys deserve as far as Light and Mike Greenberg and those guys of keeping the Bucs in a healthy position, of building this team, having what we kind of consider at least a contending team. I don't know if I'm going to say that, they're going to go all the way and win it, although we hope they do. But at least they're a contender team this year. They've got all the markings of it anyway.
It's a really good roster, and they don't have any salary cap problems.
Right.
And it took a little while to get there, and that sort of piggybacks off one of the questions that I have at the top. Is someone asked him, like, what's the challenging aspect of being a GM? And he says, balancing the need now versus the future.
Right.
And all of this sort of encompasses go together. So, of course they want to go out and get Leonard Fournette. Let's just bolster the running back room even more. Yeah, we want to go trade for Julian Edelman. Let's get let's get a fourth wide receiver. Our fourth wide receiver now is who? Like Tyler Johnson. Wow, but you'd have to, it's what's going to happen to the Saints when Drew Brees retires. Like, they keep pushing his money back. Well, eventually you're going to have to pay the guy, So it's,
well, I mean, it's what we saw happen with the Rams. They pushed all in. I mean, honestly, it's what we saw happen here in Tampa after 2002.
Yep.
Right. And we've seen teams across the league do that. And this particular administration, front office staff, is committed to not doing that. But if I could add to this whole conversation, actually from that leadership question that you keep droning on about there, Ren, when he was asked about, what does somebody need? And one of the things he noted, and I thought this was very self-reflective. He's like, you'll receive a lot of criticism and a lot of it will be justified. You've got to be able to take that. And he was, I think, talking about himself a little bit in that spot too, or at least his own experience is, you've got to take the good with the bad. You've got to have all these things. But, I think that's Light acknowledging at least the idea that they do well. They've done a good job, and it's not been perfect. But with Light, who has now been here, this is his 6th year or going into a 7th year?
Don't know.
It's one of those two, right? There's a little longevity here. A lot of people have been calling for Light's job.
It's going into his 7th year.
Okay, there you go. So a lot of people have been calling for his job for a handful of years now. 3 years at least.
Since a while.
Where are the wins? Where is this? And it strikes me the idea of look at the difference, but look at what happens when you have somebody who stays around. Like it may not look good. I'm sorry. It may not look good back then, but it does look like it's starting to build and turn around, at least from a administration standpoint around the team. So, just points for keeping people around and not trading them as much as you do your underwear. But I liked how all those kind of pieces fit together. But they, doing a pretty good job building this team.
Done a very good job building the team.
Yes.
So mine is totally draft related. And basically the way I wrote, like, the question was, of course, more long and drawn out, but what I have written down is prospect attributes. And I think this will be interesting to people who really like the draft and sort of try to basically they ask, what do you look for in a prospect, when grading them, when scouting them? And he named off these things so fast, like he's done it like 1,000 times, kind of like with the offensive line, running back, safety, offensive line, running back, safety.
Right.
And so I'm going to go over these real quick. So this might be something that people would want to remember, sort of next year when we're going through this whole process again. But the major factors are athleticism, strength, explosiveness, competitiveness, toughness, ability to learn, and character. And then he broke it down, of course, like, well, the wide receiver, then you can get how are his does he go after the ball? How are his hands? Contested catches, speed. And then he says you can even get more minute, like what's his get off? How does how does he use his hands? I might have said that last time, but it really belongs here. And what I found interesting was they take all those attributes, and the 3 levels of them, and they give them all a number.
Right.
1 through 10, but then they assign a word to each of those numbers.
Right.
1 being poor, 10 being elite. And then also the last thing to remember, when going through this athleticism, strength, explosiveness, competitiveness, toughness, ability to learn, and character is that everything doesn't count the same. So a 10 in character doesn't necessarily mean the same as 10 of explosiveness. So look at it this way. If one guy got 10s in athletic, strength, explosiveness, competitiveness, and got 5s in toughness, ability to learn, character, and then another player got the exact opposite, but their total score is the same, I guarantee you they have one of those players way highly rated on their board than the other one, even though the score is the same, because they also have sort of an interior grading system on how much each of these major factors, with Jason Licht call them, are worth to the team.
Yeah.
The end.
There you go. I like it. What Ren doesn't realize is that was actually a leadership question he just asked.
Nope.
No, I'm just
joking.
Not. Hey, I've got some news. I want to do one that's a news nugget. Sort of. Actually, the news is not news. The question was, can you lock up both Godwin and Shaq Barrett considering the salary cap this year?
Right.
And his answer was, boy, we'd love to, and we're going to try to. And we have some time.
And that would be ideal.
Yes, right. Exactly. It's like, that would be ideal. Again, this is one I think we have to read into a little bit here, Ren.
This is more of what he didn't say.
Right.
And what he didn't say was, we don't have the money.
Exactly. So for everyone who's looking, because we would love to see both of those two guys locked up before this offseason. And yes, the Bucs would love to do that. But even with that 90 some odd $1 million or whatever it was that we had going into this offseason, without having to pay a $30 or $35 million quarterback, we're still up against it right now. Now, Jason Licht, I think the intimation is there. Like, if they can get it worked out and they can shuffle some things around, sure, they'd love to do it. But I'm not looking for either one of those two. I'm not looking for both of those two things to happen. So the question I'll put to you, Ren, is, and this is, you put on your turban or your.
I already have my answer. I'm not
even going to ask it then. Go ahead.
Whoever's cheaper.
Okay. So you think they'll get one done, but not
one? God, I don't know. I don't know enough about the minutia of the salary cap to be, because you look at the Saints, and we've been saying it for, it feels like, since the Pewtercast existed, they don't have any cap space, but they don't have problems signing people.
Right.
So
Right.
so there are things that the Bucs have not had to do that the Saints have been doing for, a half decade now
Mhm.
that I just don't understand because it's not been heavily reported about here because we haven't had to do it yet.
Right.
So however the Saints work it, that might be something the Bucs might have to start delving into
Mhm.
to be able to get Godwin and Barrett.
Mhm.
I would.
But to be fair, you don't need to sign both of them this year. It would be nice because they'll be
You
cheaper
have,
this
you
year
have,
than
you
they
don't have
will
to
next
sign
year.
either one.
You
Godwin's
what?
still got a year left. You don't have to sign
Exactly.
either one. Godwin's got a year
Exactly.
left, and you could just franchise tag. Uh,
Well, they did. He's under the tag.
but you could do it again.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, it's true.
You can do it twice in a row on a player.
Right.
So
Right.
if push comes to shove, they're both neither one of them going anywhere.
Mhm. There you go.
But we shall see.
We shall see.
As with Jason Light, well, that'd be
Right.
ideal,
Right.
Brent.
So no news. The news here is no news, but they would like to.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
no, I think the news is don't expect that to happen this year.
Ooh, both of them? Yeah, I would bet against it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it could one of the two could potentially happen, but I wouldn't hold my breath for it.
Right.
Yeah.
So one of the people asked about their O-line depth.
There you go.
And then after Jason Light talked about it, I realized he didn't really answer the question because he talked about the starters. And he said,
Did he?
yeah, because he goes, we have a very good interior line. And then he talked
Mhm.
about Kappa, how, he improved and what a tough guy is and played,
Right.
most of the season or part of the season or some of the season with a fracture in his arm. Then he talked about Ryan Jensen had one of his best years ever. Then he
Right.
talked about how Allie's a very good player.
Right.
Then he said, we think Donovan had his best year. And then he talked about two guys, and that was it. So he spent
Great.
more
He
time
talked about one of the bat was it Seton?
Zach Bailey.
Zach Bailey.
He talked about Zach Bailey was the guy they got from South Carolina last
Uh-huh.
year. And there was a little bit of a buzz about, hey, this guy could push for the right guard spot.
Mhm.
And that was poo-pooed by, some of the beat writers. If you tweet it out, they're like, don't be stupid.
Mhm.
Well, they like his upside. Like people that
Right.
weren't mentioned was like Brad Seton. He wasn't mentioned, you
Right.
know. And then of course he talked about their newest pickup in Joe Haig,
Right.
who he said he was comfortable with him starting somewhere this offensive line,
Mhm.
on this offensive line, which
Mhm.
kind of makes me think, okay, he's just a guard then. Because
See,
if he would,
I didn't read that into it. When I heard him say that, I fully thought, because I know what you're talking about, and he did say somewhere, but
he could have
I
just
still
said
fully
we would have
thought
we,
tackle. Yeah.
no, but that's what he said. He said we
Yeah.
were comfortable with him starting at right tackle, basically telling everyone if we missed it on the big four and
Mhm.
had to get somebody in the second or third
There you
or
go.
that Haig would slip right in there, but he
Mhm.
didn't. He said somewhere he could start somewhere.
Yeah.
So that you could read into that. Well, then what people have said about Kappa can move out to right tackle, and see he could play guard. So there's
Mhm.
all kinds of things that are in there. But basically, uh, what I got out of this was that Jason Light likes his offensive line.
Mhm.
He says he likes his depth, but he couldn't really talk about him too much because
Right.
he only talked about two guys. So,
Right. Which
but those are
to be fair,
only two guys are going to be active.
exactly.
Yeah.
He named the people who would be active, and he did mention Tristan. He's like, well, of course we got Tristan,
Yes.
and then he went through that. So yeah. No, I thought that was. He said they felt it finished it off saying he felt like they had good depth. But you're right.
Yeah.
He only talked about the two extra guys.
Yeah.
So. All right, my turn. Let's hear where's my next one. This was a this one. Yeah, I loved this question. I loved hearing him go into this question for personal reasons and professional. The question was, why did you give up the 4th round pick to move up? Could you have stayed at 14? And his answer was, and I didn't write this down, so I'm paraphrasing here. His answer was, well, it's a gamble. Actually, that's a direct quote. It's a gamble. He said they were aware that several teams were trying to get up to get that spot to get Tristan.
No, what a little different. He said there are several teams that are trying to get up to that spot. There were 2 teams he knew of were trying to get up just to get Tristan.
Fair enough. Thank you for the clarification on that.
Sure.
He said he also heard whispers that Staley might retire.
Right, the tackle for the 49ers, so they
Right.
might have been in the Tristan sweepstakes.
Yep.
I love how
And
we've dropped the Wirfs. Yeah,
right.
we're just
Tristan, right?
Just Tristan.
Wirfs does not roll off the tongue that easy.
We're big.
Yeah.
Oh God, I can't
We're
believe
first name basis people.
No, I'm blanking on the movie. River Runs Through It. No,
Never seen it.
Is it a River Runs Through It?
I don't
No,
know.
the one that made Brad Pitt a superstar.
River Runs Through It.
Was that it?
I don't know. Yes, he was in A River Runs Through It. I know. I've never seen the movie. Anyway, what? Go ahead. Move along.
Okay, darn it. No, that was it.
But anyway,
that was it for that question.
Okay. Well, no, but he said this. He said in the end, what made him make that decision was the question basically of which would he regret more.
Legend of the Falls.
All right, there you go. I'm glad I got you back to this show now rather than having that you eat up your brain space. But he said, which one would he regret more? Like if they stayed pat, picked up whichever player they would have picked up and they missed out on the tackle,
right,
would that eat him up at night? And he said, yes, it would. And he would have really regretted not doing what it took. He's like, in the end, if all it took was a 4th rounder, he's like, yeah, that would have been a great, that's a valuable pick. That's a good spot. But if that's all it took to go get our guy and not have those regrets, then he'll do that all day long. And he even mentioned like getting a player like Tristan or getting a player like Gronk, if that's what you've got to go to do it, that sometimes the value of the pick is more valuable than the player that pick would bring.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So, that's kind of what he said. And, said, yeah, that was pretty much it. So,
just sort of wrap it up before I move on to my question. It's like, yeah, if I wake up the next day and if I knew I could have got Tristan for a 4th round pick and I didn't do it, how would I feel?
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, I'd feel bad.
Yeah.
So I did it. And
yeah.
I'm happy you did it because guess how I would feel.
Right. You remember that thing you said, you got to be able to receive a lot of criticism and it's justified.
All right. Yes.
There would be criticism. Good job, Jason, for not doing that.
This is my last one.
Mm-hmm.
Were there any problems with the virtual draft? And I found this interesting. He did a mock draft with teams they're close with during the weeks prepping up. Like once they got everything set up, the Bucs and teams they were close with, of course, would be Tennessee, and I don't know,
Arizona,
Miami, maybe I don't know Miami, but Arizona, Tennessee, and they ran through practice mock draft with practice trades and sort of troubleshooting this so what it could look like, and then of course they did it themselves. He said in the end it was a little bit different, but it felt like he was at the draft table, and this kind of goes into my last bullet point, actually, to like a question I didn't really want to go over was someone asked him about, how was the process different because of the virtual draft and social distancing and all that kind of stuff. I found it interesting that the players sent in virtual workouts.
Yeah.
Since they couldn't go to them, the players would record themselves basically doing their pro day exercises or routines or drills. And then they'd send him to the Bucs and they'd watch him there. And he said that was also very helpful. The end.
Yeah. Yeah, he did. I was surprised where he was very emphatic about how helpful those virtual workouts were, which I found very interesting. So, all right, I've got one more big piece, and I'm trying to look. I don't think I've got like one little note up here that I just found interesting, but one more big piece, big news. Actually, I guess this is.
Well, obviously, I didn't think so.
The question was asked, are there any plans to bring in another kicker for competition with Matt Gay, perhaps a Steven Gostkowski continuing to rob New England? To which the answer was, there will be competition for Matt Gay, but they feel he will be better. But they can't address who it's going to be because it's really complex because you can't bring people in for physicals, which is really, really important for kickers.
And you can't bring him on the field to kick.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Remember, I mean, we're very familiar about kicker tryouts mid-season here.
Right.
We bring in
Right.
6 guys and ta-da, Cairo Santos, you win. You only got to be good for about 2 hours.
Right.
And all of a sudden now you're an NFL player.
Right.
But yeah, so there was an outlet. Like I felt like, you were like, we should jump on this now before people start to talk about it.
Mhm.
I have seen the Times do a small piece on this already.
Oh, really?
And they're like, I don't know how they got it, where they
Uh-huh.
got it. Maybe one of their staff writers, a crew member, and was there.
Mhm.
Stroud didn't write it up, but I saw him retweet it, or maybe he did write it up. But the tweet I saw
Mhm.
wasn't from Stroud, or from somebody else from the Times.
Mhm.
And basically, all it talked about was they want to extend Godwin, and they're bringing in competition for Matt Gay.
There you go.
That was the only 2 things.
Mhm.
Now, you just heard this pod. Do you
Right.
think there's the most 2 important things that if you listen to that phone call that you would write about?
Right.
No? No.
Um, I mean, no, uh-uh.
No,
Uh-uh.
especially if one was like, "Yeah, of course, we want to."
Right. Right.
But we don't have any money.
Right. Right.
Yeah, competition coming for Matt Gay. Who? Oh, I don't know. It's
Yeah,
I don't know.
exactly. Exactly. Um, so yeah, so Matt Gay. So competition is coming for people who may be wondering about that. They do plan on bringing that in. So there's that. All right. Other than that, Ren, was there anything else that you had from the talk with Jason Licht today?
No, I think we covered at least covered the stuff that I cared about. You
Yeah.
said you had one little nugget left.
Yeah, and this is just more of behind the scenes. I just sort of found it a little interesting. Talked about what it took to get Gronk to come in. He said the conversation with New England to get him lasted about 3 weeks.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah. And basically he's like, once they landed it with New England, he knew Gronk was coming. So but yeah, took him 3 weeks to figure that out. So
Yeah. Same thing with the JPP trade. Or was that like 3 months? No, that was like a month, 2 months, something like
yeah, it
that.
was, I think they said it started at
It
the
started at the
combine.
combine, and
Yeah.
it had happened. It had to happen before the draft, so about a month
Right.
or week,
Right.
3 weeks. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Started at the
So
combine.
all right. So Ren, recap for me though. Okay. If
Uh,
you were on staff at the Times
yeah.
and you had, you had room to write 2 or 3 these are the things that stood out to you the most. What would be the 2 or 3 that stood out to you the most from today's conversation with Jason Licht that you think is most interesting to fans?
The why did you give up the 4th?
Yes.
That still seems to be the big question that, it's I think what really would help fans that didn't like it at first, which was me and
Mhm.
Brent. Brent tweeted about it.
Mhm.
Everyone, we should have that conversation again. Uh, that several teams wanted to go up,
Mhm.
and 2 teams wanted worse. Like they felt
And
they knew
possibly
that.
the 3rd with the 49ers
Yes,
themselves.
yes, and then
Yeah.
and I was just gonna get there. Plus, with the retiring of Staley, like the 49ers might have been in play
Mhm.
there as well because that wasn't public knowledge.
Right.
Like he waited till after the draft
Mhm.
to report that, or after the
Right.
first round at least, to go ahead and say he's retiring, and he did the 49ers are solid on that one. Talk about
Mhm.
tampering. Um, so I think that would be definitely my first one.
Right.
And then I really like the sort of the way he graded his things, major factors, but I don't think everyone would find that interesting.
Mhm.
Um, I would say Justin Evans, even though it was a very
Mhm.
short answer and
Right.
it's still canned, but it's
Mhm.
the first time we've got any news at all.
Right.
Because at the combine, it was, well, we'll have to see.
Mhm.
Well, it's gonna be a few weeks before we know. We
Mhm.
haven't got anything, and and like you said, it sounds like a pretty canned answer, but the reports
Mhm.
are positive, and hopefully he's there for training camp. But
Right.
it wasn't the other one. Well, he had another setback,
Mhm.
or we're still not sure, or we're still going to wait a few weeks away. So for me, I think those would have been the 2 that I picked. What about you? I'm sure you'd
Um,
have picked the same one, the first one, right?
yes, I definitely would have picked the one about that because honestly, because it's so timely right now,
Oh yeah, yeah.
right? The other one is I probably would have picked up on the extension for Godwin,
That's what
with
they
saying that
picked up on.
they want him, but they have not, the idea that they haven't started negotiations yet. And I would have probably paired that with the idea of, yeah, they'd like to do Shaq Barrett, but that's not going to happen. But really it's they have not they have not had those conversations with Godwin yet. But they went to, I think that one, so the one about moving up to the fourth, and then probably Matt Gay. There will, confirmation there will be
Who cares? Of course, there's confirmation. You have Matt Gay kick all the balls. Like they have to bring somebody in.
Well, wait, what'd they do that year that they drafted Aguayo? Wasn't it just him the entire time? And I mean, obviously we see how well that worked out, but still.
I don't remember. Did they bring somebody in to help?
No, didn't they let Barth go, and did they bring anyone in to kick extra balls?
I don't remember.
I don't think so. I think that was the whole idea, was there is no competition for Aguayo. Like he's straight out, whatever. So, but I think
Crazy train.
Yeah. So anyway, so those are the ones that and then the offensive line one.
I didn't think anything was there. I mean, I was hoped that was the crappiest answer for me.
Was it really?
He was pretty honest about everything, I think, and upfront. Yeah. And even with the questions, like he laughed. I don't want to say he giggled, but he was like, like the questions were, "How do you feel about having Tom Brady on your team?" Well,
right.
I feel pretty good. Like,
right.
That's why there's 24 questions, and the interview was like just under 30 minutes because there were some of these questions. Well, yeah, that worked out. Good for us. Next question.
And they did fly through that particular. They did fly through those questions. There wasn't a lot of discussion. It was Casey, by the way, she was facilitating it, and she would ask a question, let him answer, and then just move on. Like there was no discussing it or anything like that.
Yeah, there was no back and forth. Not her. Yeah,
right.
She doesn't do that. Oh, I agree with you, Jason. And this also. It's like, nope.
There was no pushback. Really, Jason? Really, that's how you felt? No, there was none of that.
But hey, maybe soon. Maybe soon, Casey will be able to find a safe space where she'd be able to give her Buccaneer takes.
One can only hope. Maybe she gets her own podcast or something, or who knows? Who knows what's happening? And we'll keep an eye out for all that kind of stuff. But Ren,
yes,
that's gonna do it, man. That is kind of I hesitate to use the word report, but that is our kind of, I guess, sharing with our fellow fans out there, something that we got to be a part of, and that we got to kind of be privy to, that not necessarily everybody might have gotten to be a part of.
Yeah, we would have waited on this till whenever, and then just sort of gone on these bullet points. But oh, geez, excuse me. Where'd that come from? But since, like you said, the beat reporters weren't invited to this, and there were and as you've heard, there's some really good nuggets in there, and some of these things, I know that every Bucs fan that listens to this is going to be interested in at least 2 or 3 of the things we talked about.
Sure.
There might be, different strokes for different folks, but again, with the very limited amount of times Jason Licht speaks, Brent thought it was important to get out there right away, and I agreed with him. So, ta-da!
Here we go. Well, guys, that is, I guess, going to wrap up today's episode here of the Pewtercast. Just a reminder, if you're listening to the audio version of this, thank you. That's awesome. Please keep downloading the audio version. But if you're maybe more interested in actually just watching the video side, you can head over to youtube.com/the Pewtercast and catch the live recorded video of how we put this particular episode together. So you guys head over there and do that. Ren, why don't you tell the folks out there where they can get in touch with you about anything that you have talked about on today's episode?
Best place to find me is on Twitter at Rendax, REN__DAXT. I'm always down to talk Buccaneers football. But if you don't want to put your ideas out there on Twitter, you feel free to DM me. It's the same place on Twitter. A lot of on Twitters and that. And I would like to say, to sort of get this ball rolling on YouTube, apparently this is very important to Brent. We haven't really discussed it, but he decided to record these. I agreed. How many times you see my coffee cup in the frame? If you get that right and DM Brent and get the number correct, he'll give you $100.
Fair enough. Yeah, because that was so fuzzy, nobody will get it. Yeah, I'll do that. Sure.
Well, you just have to make it up. Like, even if somebody gets it right, they're like, no, it was 37.
Right. There you go.
36. No, it's 37. Okay, 37 then. No, it's 38.
Hey, if you guys want to get in touch with me, you can find me at Brent Allen Live across all the social medias, and the show is at the Pewtercast on Twitter and on Facebook. And you can email us your thoughts to thepewtercast@gmail.com. Well, Ren, that's going to do it for us. We do have a couple other shows planned, so who knows when those will come out, but this one came a lot earlier than we did. So we'll see you guys next time. And until then, go Bucs.